Well, I wanted to do a little build tutorial for a typical dual micro coil. I don't do build videos, but figured you guys might be able to take something from it. We're going to take this piece of roll of 24 gauge that my dog got a hold of. And when I'm wrapping, I basically don't spend much time trying to make it pretty from the get-go. I use a, let's see here. I use a 2.4 millimeter screwdriver most of the time. Occasionally, if I want to build something a little bit hotter, I'll do the exact same build on a 2 millimeter. So I take it, I wrap my 5 wraps around, and I'm only going to build one because I've got others pre-built right here. Then I take this ugly thing that doesn't even look like a coil hardly, and throw the torch to it. Get it all nice and glowy. Turn that down just a smidge. And it's still hot, so let it cool off for a second. Alright, that's good enough to work with right now. And squish it on there. That's it. Just take your needle nose and squash it. And then I take one finger and I kind of hold the lower leg and I grab the upper leg with the needle nose and I just pull. And I switch sides and do the exact same thing again. Because what happens is when you do it, when you wrap it ugly like that, you end up with a lot of slop on it. So now we have a pretty decent looking coil. Not quite perfect yet. So then I take my ceramic tipped tweezers and I don't apply pressure to the coil until after it's heated, because you'll notice that as you squeeze it and apply pressure, it becomes harder for it to heat, so or it takes longer. So you do this way, and then squeeze the piss out of it. Now, if you're ever tempted to dunk it in water, which I do sometimes if I'm using needle nose, do not do that with the ceramic tip tweezers. They will shatter. So we'll let that cool for a second. Now we'll take our dripper. For safety's sake, I'm going to take the battery out of this thing. I'm going to loosen up my screws. And this should be good enough, cool enough by now. So we'll take 2 of the coils. And this is personal preference. It doesn't affect performance at all that I can tell. But I try to wrap all my coils the same direction on the screwdriver, so that what you end up with is they're all, the right side is on the low side, if that makes any sense. Like this one right here, if you notice, That's the exact same thing actually. I thought it was different, but so what that allows you to do is when you put the coil in, I usually position the coil something kind of like that. Let me get the light so you can see. Usually I center the coil ballpark of the edge of the atomizer, and I cinch the screw down really tight. Then I take the other one and do the exact same thing. Now remember, we've only tightened down one screw at this point. And I position it in a roughly the same place, as close as I can get it. And I cinch the outside screw down. So now we have 2 coils in and two screws cinched down. I then take my screwdriver and just finesse the coil over to the center, which is where we want it for a center build. Now, leaving the middle screw loose, you were able to push those legs in, and they were able to go in just the way they're supposed to go. So, as you can see, we've kind of got a pretty decent looking setup going here, but it's nowhere near perfect. But now I'm going to cinch down the middle finally. And give everything else a snug as well. Then I bend the 2 leads out of the way and snip off the excess. Then we start tweaking it, just working it to the best of the ability. And since you already heated it, it's actually pretty easy to work with. You don't have to, and we will dry fire it here in a minute and to finish everything, but we're pretty close to having a really nice build right now. Okay, I think that's clear, yeah. Alright, so now we'll put the battery back in. And fire it. See, we're hot legged on this side, so I'm going to start squeezing that side together. And that's pretty much it. Basically, you want your coils to be centered into the deck. You want to get them positioned as close to the air holes on the side of your atomizer as possible. And you want them to heat evenly. Now that looks pretty good there. I'm going to use a little bit of cotton here, and there's about a bazillion kinds of cotton out there right now. I've tried a lot of cotton. I wouldn't say I've tried it all, but I've tried a lot. And pretty much what I've come to the conclusion of, cotton's cotton. The Japanese Kojindo seems to be what I use most often. But I couldn't really say there's a night and day difference in any of it, really. I mean, if I'm honest. You know, if you buy something, you know, I think that a lot of people, you know, they rave about how good a particular cotton is, and I think it's power of suggestion. They've seen somebody else say it's so great, and they, you know, expect it to be great, so it's great in their head too. And that, if that's, you know, if that works and that works for you, it's so be it, you know. I personally just buy the cheap shit off Amazon and enjoy. Buy you some better juice. So this is getting that waked up a little bit. I cut my cotton into a little bit of a triangle. I didn't say that, but like that. And then I split it down the middle. Depending on what kind of cotton you have, if you have the real white Japanese cotton, I don't do that. I don't do this. I just tear off the layers and cut it in triangles. But with this, I just split it down the layers, and it's pretty close to being perfect. And I put my cotton through snug but not tight. I mean, it can move still. And then usually I give it maybe 1/8 of an inch past the side post, and give it a snip. I'll make one side a little bit longer than the other side. Not a real reason for that. I just habit. So then we tuck it down in there. Basically, the wick looks like a fella with a mustache going into a goatee, if you picture it that way. Because you want the airflow on the bottom of the coil. You don't want so much cotton that you're filling that cavity up. You basically want the outer edge of the coil to not have any cotton touching at all. And this is just my preference. It doesn't, no magic recipe for something that's great, but it's what I've found that I like. And basically, from my experience with a decent dripper, this is the best vapor production, best flavor, just hands down. I've built the crazy Claptons and tiger coils and twisted tiger coils and abyss coils, and I mean, and I can keep going. I've got a little Tupperware container that's got a bunch of coils that I've built, and they just don't work as well. A 24 gauge nichrome build, it fires really fast. It cools fast, so you don't have to deal with a hot top cap, so you can chain vape the piss out of it without having any problems. I mean, I'm going to show you here. And my top cap's cold. I mean, it's not hot. The mod's not hot. Everything's fine. If you're playing with 20 gauge or 18 gauge or something like that, if you just did what I just did, about 2 or 3 draws in, the mod's so damn hot you can't use it. You got to set it down, and you can't use it for 5 minutes to let it cool off. And you're not getting any more vapor. I would put money that this build right here, short of somebody who really knows what they're doing, will produce more vapor and more flavor than about anything out there. But it's why all the guys that you see on YouTube building crazy coils, with the exception of Twisted Messes, he actually daily vapes a Clapton. Almost all of them daily vape this right here. This is what everybody uses, not what you see them building the crazy shit. That's just an art form for them guys. And if you ask them, they don't hide that. If you ask, Blue Eyed Goon or one of those type guys, he'll tell you flat out, this is his daily build, a 24 gauge nichrome dual coil, and it's just good. So I hope that helps some of you guys and get your coils to look nice and pretty like that.